Welcome to Simple English Sessions.
Hi, everyone. Our goal here on Simple English Sessions is, well, it's to make interesting topics easy for you to understand, especially if you're learning English.
That's right. We'll speak slowly and we'll use common, simple words. We want to help you understand everything.
And today we have a really amazing story. We're doing a deep dive into the life of Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, he wasn't just an actor, he was a legend, a man who, well, he made the whole world laugh.
And your mission today, if you choose to accept it, just kidding.
Hey.
But really, your mission is to listen and learn about a life that was full of really hard times, but also incredible success.
Mm-hmm.
And while you listen, you'll learn some new English words too. Charlie Chaplin's story is all about something called perseverance.
Perseverance, that's a great word.
It is. Perseverance means never giving up. It means you keep trying, even when things are very, very hard. His story also shows the strong power of dreams.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. A difficult beginning, actually. His early life and poverty.
A difficult beginning, early life, and poverty.
Right. So Charlie Chaplin was born in London, England. That was on April 16th, 1889.
London, England. So that's like a really big city, right? The capital?
Exactly. A huge city in England, a country far away for many of our listeners. And back then, London was, well, it was busy, but also parts of it were very poor.
And his parents, what do they do?
Good question. His parents, Hannah Chaplin and Charles Chaplin Sr., they were both performers.
Performers. What does that mean, performers?
Performers are people who entertain others. Maybe they sing songs or act in plays on a stage. They put on shows for people.
Okay, so his family worked in shows. They sang and danced for money?
That's right. They worked in what were called music halls. But life wasn't easy.
Why not?
Well, Charlie's father, Charles Sr., he was an alcoholic.
Alcoholic. What does that mean?
An alcoholic is a person who drinks too much alcohol, like beer or wine, and they can't stop drinking, even when it causes big problems.
Okay, I see. That sounds very difficult.
It was. And his father left the family when Charlie was just a little boy, very young.
Oh, no. So who took care of Charlie?
His mother, Hannah. She was left all alone to care for two children, Charlie and his older half-brother, Sidney.
Just her.
Yeah.
Raising two boys. That must have been so hard.
It was incredibly hard. They lived in extreme poverty.
Poverty. You used that word before. What is poverty?
Poverty is, it's a situation where people have very, very little money. So little that sometimes they don't have enough food to eat or a safe place to live. They have no good home.
So they were very, very poor with almost nothing.
Yes, exactly. The stories from his childhood are, well, they're very sad. Sometimes there was just no food on the table at all. Charlie often had to go to bed hungry.
Wow. Do they often not have enough to eat that?
Very often. And here's something really sad. Sometimes his mother, Hannah, she would pretend to eat. She'd make it look like she was eating, just so her children, Charlie and Sidney, could have a little more food.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. She pretends that they could eat.
Yes, and they were always afraid of being thrown out of their rooms.
Thrown out?
Yeah, thrown out means forced to leave a place. Like, if they couldn't pay the rent for their room, the owner could force them to leave, put them on the street. So they moved all the time, from one small, often dirty room to another.
What really stands out here is how much his mother tried. Even with nothing, she tried so hard to protect her children.
Absolutely. She was fighting for them. And despite all this hardship, there was something Charlie loved.
What was that?
The stage. His mother, Hannah, she was a talented singer and actress herself, remember?
Right, a performer.
And Charlie absolutely loved to watch her perform. He would go backstage.
Backstage. What's backstage?
Backstage is the area behind the stage in a theater. It's where the performers get ready, where the costumes are, all the ropes and things, not where the audience sits.
Okay, got it.
So little Charlie would sit there backstage and he'd be completely mesmerized.
Mesmerized. That sounds like a big word.
It is, but it just means very, very interested. Like you can't look away. You're totally focused on something amazing.
Okay. So he was mesmerized watching his mom.
Yes. He just sat there watching her, dreaming of the day he could be up there himself on the stage in front of an audience.
He really loved watching her perform, didn't he? It sounds like that was maybe a little bit of light in a very difficult childhood, a really important part of his dreams.
Definitely. It planted a seed, you could say.
The spark of genius, first performance and dream.
But then something terrible happened.
Yeah.
One night, Hannah was performing in a theater. She was singing on stage. And suddenly, Her voice just stopped working properly. She lost her voice.
Lost her voice.
Yeah.
So she couldn't sing clearly anymore.
Not exactly. Maybe it became weak or scratchy or just wouldn't come out. The audience,
Yeah.
well, they were not kind. They got very angry.
Angry. Why?
Because they had paid to see a show and she couldn't perform properly. They started shouting mean things at her, and then they started throwing things onto the stage, oranges, coins, anything they had. They wanted her to leave.
Wow. So the people watching were really upset because she couldn't sing. They didn't like that her voice was gone.
Not at all. It was a horrible moment for her, a public humiliation. But then, something truly magical happened next.
What? What happened?
Amidst all the shouting and throwing, a little boy walked onto the stage. A tiny figure. He was only 5 years old.
5 years old?
Yes. It was Charlie himself.
Wow. So a very, very young boy went on stage.
Yeah.
In front of all those angry people. What did he do?
He just walked up, picked up the microphone,
Yeah.
and he started to sing. He danced. He did little funny things he'd seen his mother do.
At 5 years old, that's incredible courage.
It really was. And you know what? The whole mood of the crowd changed instantly.
Really? What
Yeah.
happened?
They stopped being angry. They started laughing. They roared with laughter.
Roared with laughter. What does that mean?
It means they laughed very, very loudly, like a big, powerful sound, like a lion's roar, but with laughter. They absolutely loved him. They clapped and cheered for this little boy.
Amazing.
This is the very, very first time Charlie Chaplin performed in front of a big group of people, and he felt something amazing. He felt the magic of making people laugh.
What's so fascinating here is how, at such a young age, just 5, he discovered this incredible talent he had, this power to make people happy, even when things were going so wrong.
Exactly. And from that exact moment, deep inside his heart, Charlie knew. He just knew, this is what I was born to do.
Born to do.
Yeah, like something you feel you are meant to do in your life, your special purpose, your destiny. He knew performing was his.
That raises a really interesting question, though. How did this small boy, who, as we know, lives such a hard life,
Yeah.
how did he hold on to such a big dream, the dream to perform?
That's the mystery, isn't it? Maybe the dream was his escape, his hope.
From streets to stage learning and growing.
Because life didn't get easier right away. It continued to be very cruel, actually. After many years of being poor and sad and struggling, Charlie's mother, Hannah, she lost her mind.
Lost her mind. What happened?
It means she became mentally ill. Her mind wasn't working correctly anymore. She couldn't think clearly. It was very sad. And she was sent away to a mental hospital.
A mental hospital.
Yes.
So a hospital for people with illnesses of the mind.
Yes, a place where they try to help people like Hannah. But it meant Charlie and his brother Sidney were left completely alone.
Oh, my goodness. No father and now no mother to care for them.
None at all. No family, no money, no home. They became street children.
Street children.
Yeah.
You mean children who actually live on the streets without a house or parents?
Yes. Begging for food, maybe fighting sometimes, just trying to survive day by day.
So they had absolutely no one to take care of them.
No one. And eventually they were forced to live in places called workhouses.
Workhouses. What were they? Were they like job centers?
Oh, no, not at all. Workhouses were terrible places back then, places where very poor people, including children, had to go if they had nowhere else. They had to work very, very hard doing difficult jobs.
And in return?
In return, they got basic food and a bed. But the conditions were awful, cold, often cruel, full of sadness and suffering. They were designed to be harsh.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
How old was Charlie when this happened?
He was only 7 years old the first time he had to go into a workhouse. And worse, sometimes he was separated from his brother, Sidney, his only family.
Separated from his brother, too, at 7.
Yes. And when he did get to see his mother again sometimes, her illness was worse. She didn't always recognize him. Imagine how painful that must have been for a little boy.
This part of his story, it just shows his incredible resilience. That's another important word.
Resilience, yes. What does resilience mean?
Resilience is, it's the ability to bounce back, to become strong again after something very difficult or painful happens. And Charlie, even with all this suffering, he somehow kept going. He never lost that dream, did he?
No, he didn't. Even in all that pain and loneliness, the dream was still there. To perform, to make people laugh, to bring some joy into a world that had been so incredibly hard on him.
It's amazing he held on to it.
He knew he had only one real choice: work hard and fight for that dream. So even as a child, he started looking for small jobs. Any job. washing dishes, delivering newspapers. He even worked for a short time making toys. But his heart, it was always thinking about the stage.
So he was already working very hard for his dream, even when he was really young.
Absolutely. Then one day, he saw a group of street performers.
Street performers, like the people who maybe juggle or do magic tricks on the street for money.
Exactly like that. People who act or sing or entertain right there on the streets, hoping people will give them some coins. And when Charlie saw them, something inside him just clicked. He thought, this is my chance. So he joined them.
Really? He just joined a group of street performers?
He did. He started performing right there on the streets. Dancing, singing, doing little comedy acts he made up.
Wow. So this is where he really started practicing his comedy, his art, even without a proper stage or, a paying audience.
Yes. This was his first real training ground, you could say. At first, though, it wasn't easy. Nobody really paid attention. People just walked past him, busy with their own lives.
So he didn't give up then?
No way. Charlie did not give up. He kept performing every day. He kept trying to make his acts better. He watched other comedians, other performers, studying everything they did, how they moved, how they told their jokes, their timing. He was learning all the time.
He was like a student of comedy.
He was. And slowly, very slowly, people started to notice. They'd stop walking, they'd watch him for a minute, and then they started laughing.
So people finally started to see his special talent.
Yes. And for the first time in his life, doing it himself, Charlie felt that magic again, that incredible feeling. He had the power to make people happy, even just for a moment.
That must have felt amazing after everything he'd been through.
It must have. And then, when he was 14 years old, he got a huge opportunity, a real chance. He was hired by a theater group. They were called the 8 Lancashire Lads.
The 8 Lancashire Lads. What did he do with them?
It was just a small part, not the star or anything, but it was a start. It was a real job in a real theater group. And he worked harder than anyone else there. He learned every dance step, every little trick, every joke. His talent just, it shined.
Shines like a light.
Exactly. Shined means it showed very brightly. It was very clear to everyone that he was special. And a theater director saw him. This director said, this boy is special.
So someone noticed his hard work and talent.
Yes. And because of that, he started getting bigger roles in plays. And then when he was 16 years old, he got his first major acting role, a really important part in a play called Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective.
That's the one. So think about it. He was no longer just a poor boy performing on the streets. He was a real actor, performing in real theaters in front of big audiences. He had come so far already.
Wow. If we connect this back, it really shows how his incredible hard work, his determination, right from when he was a little kid, that was clearly the most important reason he started to succeed. He never stopped trying.
Never. That perseverance we talked about.
Hollywood awaits the birth of an icon.
And then came another huge step. In 1910, Charlie got what you might call a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Once in a lifetime. What does that mean?
It means a chance that is so special, so rare, it probably only happens one time in your whole life. You have to take it.
Okay. So what was this amazing chance?
He was invited to go to America to join a famous comedy group that performed there.
America?
Yeah.
Wow. Was going to America a really big deal back then? A very exciting thing for someone from England.
Oh, absolutely. America was seen as like the land of opportunity, the place where dreams could come true, especially for performers. There was so much energy, so much happening there. So Charlie packed his bags, got on a big ship, and crossed the wide Atlantic Ocean towards his future. When he arrived in America, everything felt different. Bigger, louder, more exciting. And most importantly, Hollywood was there.
Hollywood. The movies.
Exactly. Hollywood was just starting to become the center of the movie world, and Charlie knew deep down, he just felt it. This is where I belong.
Belong. What does belong mean here?
Belong means feeling like you are in the right place. Like this is where you should be, where you fit in perfectly. He felt that Hollywood was the right place for him.
Okay.
And Hollywood noticed him too. In 1913, a film company called Keystone Studios saw how talented he was. They gave him a small role in a silent film.
A silent film? Can you explain that?
Sure. A silent film is a movie with no sound, no talking that you can hear, just moving pictures. Sometimes they played music in the theater while the movie was showing, but the actors didn't speak. They had to show everything through their actions and faces.
Okay, pictures but no voices. Got it.
Charlie saw this as his big chance, not just to be in a movie, but to create something totally new, something unique, something people would remember forever. So he created a character. And that character was The Tramp.
The Tramp. Yes, everyone knows the Tramp. What did he look like?
Well, the Tramp was the small man, right? And he wore oversized clothes.
Oversized. Too big for him.
Exactly. Pants that were way too big, a coat that was too tight, shoes that were huge, and he had that funny little square hat, a bowler hat, and a tiny mustache. And of course, that walk, that funny way he walked. It's maybe the most famous walk in the world.
So this character looked very different, very special.
Totally unique. At first, some people at the movie studio weren't sure. They thought maybe he was too strange. But when Charlie performed as the Tramp, when he moved and acted and made people laugh without saying a single word, the whole world just fell in love with him.
Instantly.
Pretty much instantly. The Tramp became one of the most famous characters in movie history, ever.
What's so amazing here is how he did it all without words. Just using his body, his face, he could connect with everyone in every country. People didn't need to understand English to laugh at the Tramp.
That's a great point. His comedy was visual, universal, and his silent films started becoming incredibly popular. Huge hits. Movie producers were begging him to make more films. Studios offered him enormous amounts of money.
So he became successful very quickly in America.
Incredibly quickly. Think about it. In just a few years, the poor boy who once lived on the streets of London, who was hungry in workhouses, he had become the biggest movie star in the whole world.
Wow, from extreme poverty to the biggest star in the world.
By 1917, just a few years after he started, Charlie Chaplin wasn't just famous, he was a phenomenon.
Phenomenon? What's a phenomenon?
Phenomenon is something or someone that is so special, so popular, so amazing that everyone talks about them and loves them. Like a huge wave of popularity.
Okay, so he was like a superstar.
Bigger than a superstar, people stood in long lines for hours sometimes just to get tickets to watch his movies. His face, the Tramp's face, was everywhere, on posters, in newspapers, in magazines. He was loved in every country by people speaking every language, in every culture.
That really shows the incredible power of, well, a truly unique idea, like the Tramp, combined with amazing talent. Talent that just touches people everywhere, all over the world.
Absolutely. He had found his stage, and the whole world was his audience.
Master of his art, taking control in new directions.
But even with all this incredible fame and all the money and everyone loving him, Charlie never forgot where he came from. He was still, deep down, that boy who had starved on the streets, who had cried for his mother. He never gave up on his dreams, and he never forgot his past.
So the success didn't completely change him inside.
It seems not. And now he wanted more. Not more money necessarily, but more control. He didn't just want to be an actor in the movies. He wanted to control everything about his movies.
Everything. Like what?
Like the stories, the writing, the direction that means, how the movie is filmed, how the actors perform, how it all looks and feels. He wanted to choose the music. He wanted to control all the emotions in the film. He wanted to create movies completely his way.
So he didn't want other people, like the movie studios, telling him what to do anymore. He wanted to be the boss.
Exactly. And Hollywood didn't like that idea much at all. Back then, actors were usually just employees of the big movie studios. The studios told them what movies to make, how to act, even how to live their lives sometimes.
So the studios had all the power.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But Charlie Chaplin was different. He was so popular, so powerful himself by this point. He basically said, no one is going to control me. I will make my own movies my way.
That was brave. Did it work?
It did. In 1918, he did something that absolutely shocked the whole movie industry. He built his own place to make movies. It was called Chaplin Studios.
He built his own studio, like it was a movie factory.
Yes. Now he was completely his own boss. He could create whatever he wanted, any story, any character, and nobody could stop him or tell him no. This was a total game changer.
A game changer. You used that before. Can you remind us?
Sure. A game changer is something that completely changes how things are done or how people think about something. Charlie, building his own studio, changed the power balance in Hollywood. It showed that artists could be independent.
That raises an important question, I think. Why was it so important for him to have that complete control? Was it just about power?
Maybe partly, but I think it was more about his art. He had such a clear vision for his films, mixing comedy with sadness, talking about real life. He didn't want anyone else messing with that vision. It shows how passionate he was about telling stories his way, not just making money.
Okay, that makes sense. He wanted his films to be truly his.
Exactly. And in 1921, working in his own studio, he made a movie that would become one of the most famous and loved films of all time. The Kid.
The Kid. I've heard of that one. What was it about?
Well, it wasn't just a comedy, although it was very funny. It was really his story, in a way. It's about the tramp, the poor man who finds an abandoned baby boy and raises him. It's a story about being poor, about struggling to survive, but also about love between this man and this boy who have nothing else.
Ah, so it had sad parts too. Was this movie sad or funny or both?
It was definitely both. People laughed a lot, but they also cried. It touched people's hearts very deeply. The whole world fell in love with this movie.
So it showed that movies could do more than just make you laugh.
Yes. At that moment, Charlie really knew that movies weren't just for entertainment.
Entertainment. What's entertainment?
Entertainment means things that people watch or do for fun to make them happy or interested, like watching movies or going to shows or playing games.
Okay.
Charlie realized movies were more than just entertainment. They were powerful. They could make people think, feel deeply, maybe even change their lives. And he decided he was going to use his movies to try and make the world a little better.
Wow. That's a big goal for a filmmaker.
It was. And with every movie he made, Charlie became more powerful. Remember how we said studios paid actors very little? Well, Charlie was now earning maybe $1 million for each movie. He was probably the richest and most powerful actor in the world.
$1 million per movie back then. That's incredible.
It is. But even with all that money, he never forgot being poor. He still remembered having nothing to eat. And he worked incredibly hard. He didn't rush. Sometimes he would spend months or even years making just one film.
Years on one movie. Why so long?
Because he cared about every tiny detail, every little movement the tramp made, every small joke, how the camera was placed, the music. He planned everything perfectly. He wasn't just making movies, he wanted to make history.
History, like something important that people remember forever.
Exactly. He wanted his films to last, to be seen as great art. But then in the late 1920s, Hollywood changed again. Big change.
What happened?
A new kind of movie arrived. Movies with sound. Talkies, they called them. For the first time, actors could actually speak on the screen and the audience could hear them.
Wow. So silent films were suddenly old news.
Pretty much. Silent films started dying.
Dying, like becoming very unpopular. Nobody wanted to see them anymore.
Exactly. Everyone was excited about the new talking movies.
So everyone must have told Charlie, you have to make talking movies now. Stop making silent film.
Oh, absolutely. The pressure was huge. All the other big stars started making talkies. But Charlie, he refused.
He refused. Why?
He still believed in silent film. He said something like, movies don't need words. Emotions are more powerful than words. He thought the actions, the faces, the mime, that was the true art of cinema.
So he went against everyone else.
He did. In 1931, when almost everyone thought silent movies were completely finished, dead and gone, he released City Lights. And it was a silent film.
Was it successful? Or did people ignore it because it wasn't a talkie?
It was a massive success. It's considered one of the most emotional and beautiful films ever made. Even though there were no spoken words, people cried watching it, especially the ending. The final scene where the tramp looks at a blind girl who can now see, it's one of the greatest moments in all of film history. Even today, people call City Lights maybe the greatest silent movie ever made.
Wow. So he proved his point, didn't he? That deep emotions can be understood by everyone without needing language. What's really fascinating is his strong belief, his conviction in the power of just showing things visually, even when technology was changing everything around him.
He stuck to his vision. He was a true master of his art.
A voice for humanity speaking out.
As the 1930s went on, the world outside the movie started getting darker, much darker. By the late 1930s, Adolf Hitler was rising to power in Germany.
Hitler, yes, a terrible time in history.
Absolutely. Hitler was spreading hate, preparing for war, and creating a lot of fear across Europe and the world. And Charlie Chaplin noticed something. Well, something strange and disturbing.
What was that?
Hitler had the same kind of small mustache as Charlie's famous tramp character, that little toothbrush mustache.
Really? Hitler copied the tramp's mustache, or was it just a coincidence?
Probably a coincidence of fashion at the time, but people started noticing. They started comparing Charlie Chaplin, the man who made everyone laugh, with Adolf Hitler, the man spreading hate and fear.
That must have been very uncomfortable for Chaplin. So did he decide to do something about this? About this very serious world problem? Use his fame somehow?
He made a very brave decision. He decided he would use his art, his comedy, to fight back, to fight against Hitler and the hate he represented. So in 1940, he made a new movie. It was called The Great Dictator.
The Great Dictator. I've heard of that too. Was it a comedy?
It was, and it wasn't. It was a comedy. Yes, he played both a character like the tramp and a character who was clearly making fun of Hitler. But it was also his first movie where he really spoke dialogue throughout the whole film, his first real talking movie.
Ah, so he finally made a talkie.
He did. But this movie was much more than just a comedy or just a talkie. It was a powerful message, a statement to the world.
How so?
Well, the most famous part is the very end of the movie. Charlie stops playing the character. He looks directly at the camera as himself, Charlie Chaplin, and he gives this incredible, passionate speech.
A speech in the movie?
Yes, a direct message to humanity. We have a little piece of it here from our research. He says things like, "We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. Let us fight for a world of reason. Let us fight for freedom."
Wow, that's it. That's incredibly powerful, especially in 1940 when the war was really starting. What's so fascinating, I think, is how he used his art form comedy, which usually makes people feel good and forget their troubles. He used it to send such a serious and brave and incredibly important message. He was speaking out against one of the most dangerous dictators in history. That must have been risky for him.
Extremely risky, but he felt he had to do it, and the world listened. That speech became instantly famous, absolutely legendary.
Legendary? What does legendary mean?
Legendary means something so famous, so important, that people remember it for a very, very long time, like a legend or a great story passed down. His speech was like that. And the movie showed everyone that Charlie Chaplin wasn't just a funny man in baggy pants. He was a fighter. He had a conscience. He was a voice for ordinary people, for humanity.
But did everyone like that? Did Hollywood approve?
Well, that's where things got complicated. Hollywood, or at least the powerful people running the studios and in the government, they didn't really like this. Charlie was becoming too powerful, too independent in their eyes, and some people really didn't like his political messages. They thought he was getting involved in things he shouldn't.
So powerful people in Hollywood, maybe even the government, started to turn against him, even after all he'd done for the movies.
Yes, exactly. They started to see him as a troublemaker. They accused him of things, bad things that he never actually did. They started spreading lies about him, trying to damage his reputation. It was the beginning of a very difficult time for him in America.
Exile and return, a legend's true victory.
Things got worse and worse. This campaign against him, these lies and accusations, they continued for years. Finally, in 1952, something drastic happened. Charlie was traveling by ship to London for the opening of his new movie. While he was at sea, the U.S. government announced he would not be allowed back into America. They basically kicked him out of the country.
Kicked out, so they forced him to leave.
Yeah.
And wouldn't let him come back.
Exactly. Forced him to leave the country he had lived in for 40 years, the place where he became a global star. He was absolutely heartbroken.
Heartbroken. That means very, very sad.
Extremely sad.
Devastated. He couldn't believe it. So he and his family had to find somewhere else to live. They moved to Switzerland, a country in Europe. And for many years after that, he stopped making movies. He lived a much quieter life with his wife and children.
This raises a really important question, doesn't it? Why? Why would they force someone so famous, so loved around the world, to leave the country he helped build in a way? It really comes down to fear and control, I think. It was a time in America called the Red Scare, where people were very afraid of communism. Charlie was very independent. He spoke his mind about peace and helping poor people. He criticized powerful people. They didn't like that. They saw him as dangerous because they couldn't control him or his message.
So they silenced him by forcing him out.
That seems to be what happened. So for the next 25 years, Charlie lived in this beautiful, peaceful house in Switzerland. He spent his time writing his life story, reading books, composing music, and just being a father to his 8 children with his wife, Una.
8 children? Wow.
Yes, a big family. He would walk in his garden, maybe thinking about his incredible life, the poverty, the workhouses, the fame, the movies, the fight, the exile. Sometimes, apparently, he would watch his old movies and just laugh.
Even though he was far away from Hollywood, you can tell his spirit, his thoughts were still deeply connected to all that amazing work he did, and maybe also the difficult past he came from.
Definitely. But the world, the world never forgot Charlie Chaplin. His films were still shown everywhere. People still loved The Tramp. And then in 1972, after Charlie had been living outside America for 20 years, Hollywood seemed to realize it had made a huge mistake.
What did they do?
They invited him back. They invited Charlie Chaplin back to America, to Hollywood, for the Oscars.
The Oscars. What are the Oscars?
Oh, the Oscars are very, very famous awards given out every year in Hollywood for the best movies, the best actors, directors, and so on. It's like the biggest night for movies.
Okay. So they invited him back for this big awards show.
Yes, to give him a special honorary award for his incredible contribution to film. And when he walked out onto that stage, he was older now, of course, a bit frail. But when he appeared, everyone in that room, all the famous actors, directors, producers, everyone stood up. They gave him a standing ovation.
A standing ovation. What's that?
It's when everyone stands up and claps their hands for a very long time. It's a way to show huge respect and admiration for someone.
And they did that for Charlie.
They did. And it wasn't just a short clap. It was the longest standing ovation in the entire history of the Oscars. People clapped for 12 minutes, just clapping and cheering for Charlie Chaplin.
12 minutes. That's incredible.
It was Hollywood's way of saying, we were wrong, we're sorry, you are a true legend. Charlie had tears in his eyes. He had won in the end. His art, his spirit had outlasted all the politics and the hate. He was truly a legend. Welcome back.
That's an amazing moment. It really highlights his lasting impact, doesn't it? How his art was so important that it just stood the test of time, proving he mattered more than any political disagreements.
Yeah.
A real victory from
Absolutely. A true victory.
Love, loss, and lasting legacy, personal life, and final chapter.
Now, we've talked a lot about his work, his genius in making movies. But his personal life, especially his love life, that was much more complicated. He was brilliant on screen, but in his relationships, things were often difficult. He seemed to fall in love very easily, maybe too easily sometimes. And many of his relationships ended with a lot of pain and drama.
Pain and drama, so unhappy endings, fights.
Yes, quite often. He was married 4 times in his life. His first 3 marriages all failed.
Failed, meaning they didn't work out, they ended unhappily.
Exactly. They ended in divorce, sometimes with big public arguments, court cases. His wives often left him, sometimes taking a lot of his money.
Yeah.
It got so bad that people started to say things like, Charlie can make the whole world happy, but he can't find happiness and love for himself.
So it was really hard for him to find true love, or just a stable, happy marriage, despite all his fame.
It seems it was very difficult for him for a long time. But then, something changed, finally. In 1943, Charlie was 54 years old, and he met a young woman named Una O'Neill. She was only 18 years old at the time.
Wow, 54 and 18, that's a very big age difference. Did people talk about that?
Oh, yes, a lot. People were quite critical. They said she was much too young for him, but Charlie didn't care what people said. Because with Una, for the first time in his life, he felt he had found true love.
True love, like real deep, lasting love.
Yes, that's how he described it. Una became the most important person in his life. She was incredibly loyal. She stood by him through everything when people criticized him, when Hollywood turned against him, when he was forced to leave America. She was his best friend, his partner, his love, his everything.
So they stayed together, despite the age difference and everything?
They stayed together until the very end of his life. And by all accounts, they were truly happy together. They built a real family. They had 8 children together. For the first time, maybe, Charlie had that stable, loving family life he never really had as a child.
That's wonderful that he finally found that.
It is. And it was with Una and their children that he lived those final years in Switzerland. Remember, for 25 years, he lived in that beautiful, peaceful house, writing, reading, playing with his kids, walking in the garden, thinking about his amazing long journey, sometimes watching his old movies, and maybe having a quiet laugh.
That really shows us, I think, that even someone as famous and legendary as Charlie Chaplin,
Well,
he still needed personal happiness. He needed the support of a loving family to feel truly complete. The fame wasn't enough by itself.
very true. Then, on December 25, 1977, it was Christmas Day, the world received sad news. Charlie Chaplin had died peacefully in his sleep. He was 88 years old.
88. A long life, especially after such a hard start.
A very long and incredibly full life. The world went quiet for a moment. People everywhere mourned. They cried for the man who had made billions of people laugh over the decades.
True global loss.
It was. But then, the story takes one last, absolutely bizarre twist. Something truly shocking happened about 3 months after he died and was buried.
What now?
One night, a group of thieves...
Thieves, people who steal things.
Yes. They broke into the cemetery where he was buried. They went to his grave. A grave is where a dead person is buried in the ground. They dug up his coffin. A coffin is the box a dead person is placed inside for burial.
Okay, this sounds bad.
And they stole Charlie Chaplin's body. They literally stole his dead body right out of the grave.
What? His dead body was stolen. Why? Why would anyone do such a terrible thing?
Money. The thieves wanted money. They contacted Charlie's family and demanded $600,000 to return the body.
They wanted ransom money
Yeah.
for his body.
Yes. But Una, his wife, she refused to pay. She showed incredible strength. She famously said that Charlie himself would have laughed at this situation.
Wow. Even in that horrible situation, she kept her composure. What happened then?
Well, for weeks, the world was shocked. Where was Charlie Chaplin's body? The police launched a huge investigation, and eventually they caught the thieves.
Who were they?
They turned out to be two poor men, mechanics from Eastern Europe. They weren't master criminals. They had stolen the body in a desperate attempt to escape poverty.
Escape poverty, to get out of being poor.
Yes. They thought this was their crazy way to get rich quick. Of course it didn't work. They were caught.
And Charlie's body, was it returned?
Yes, thankfully, his body was recovered and returned to his family. This time, though, they made sure it wouldn't happen again. They buried him in a much stronger grave, covered with thick cement so that no one could ever steal him again.
That is just an unbelievably strange and surprising end to the story. Or after the end, really. It just adds another layer to how unique and legendary Charlie Chaplin's whole life was. Even death wasn't simple for him.
Not at all. An extraordinary life right to the very, very end and beyond. Outro. So we've walked through this incredible life story, Charlie Chaplin's journey from extreme poverty to global fame, his genius, his struggles, his exile, his return. What does it all mean? What does this amazing story mean for you listening right now? What can we learn from Charlie Chaplin's life?
Well, I think if there's one big lesson, one really important thing is that first word we talked about, perseverance. Never give up.
Never give up. That seems to be the core message, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No matter how hard your life gets, no matter how poor you might be, no matter how many people try to stop you or tell you can't do it, if you have a dream inside you, you have to fight for it. You just have to keep going.
He also taught us, didn't he, that life isn't just about money or success or power. Important things maybe, but not everything.
Exactly. Life is also about laughter and love and always trying to move forward to overcome challenges. His movies, even today, decades later, still bring so much joy to people. And his struggles, his story of overcoming hardship, it still inspires millions.
His spirit really does live on. Every time we laugh at a funny movie, or maybe even when we watch any great movie that makes us feel something deeply.
His influence is still there. He showed that art can come from pain, and that even from the toughest start, you can reach amazing heights if you believe in yourself and work incredibly hard.
Charlie Chaplin himself once said something simple but very profound. A day without laughter is a day wasted.
That's a great quote to live by. And he certainly filled the world with a lot of laughter, making sure fewer days were wasted for everyone.
He really did. So as we finish up our deep dive today, here's a final thought for you, our listener. Thinking about Charlie's life, his struggles, his dreams, and that quote, what will you do today? How will you find some laughter in your day? Or maybe, how will you take one small step towards chasing your own big dream, just like Charlie did?
His story really shows you no matter how hard life gets, you just have to keep going. So dream big, work hard, and who knows, maybe one day your own story, your own perseverance might inspire the whole world too.